He really stepped out, of course, in Dirty Mind. The whole look.
People in New York loved it. Critics loved it. We played the Ritz, and it was monumental. Everybody was at that show in New York.
Very intense.
An up-and-comer. He was pulling the stars in.
You know, Mick Jagger and David Bowie, Andy Warhol, Gene Simmons.
Kiss guys were there.
I mean, it was
an explosion, definitely. Saturday Night Live, we did Party Up.
When we first did Saturday Night Live, Prince wanted to be spectacular. At the end of Party Up, he was like, just run off the stage, just push everything over and run off the stage. So we did that. And the producers were like, where are you going?
Right before we did Saturday Night Live is when I officially was like, I'm out. I said, look, I'll do that and do the European thing. And then,
we went to Europe. There, everything is different. The integration, people, the racial integration, the thought integration, the freedom. There was people with blue spiked mohawks. It was just a completely different mindset to what we think as punk rock that came out of CBGBs. Prince was very excited about the reception in London, Paris, and Amsterdam at the Paradiso, those first 3 shows. He had a real positive outlook coming off the Rich show.
I like Europe a great deal. I like the spirit that's here. I wish there were some things I could bring back with me. I get off when I see a real loose kid at a gig, and they really get into what we do and they understand it. And they're just as free-minded as you are, and they believe in the same things you believe. I get off more on that than anything. I know that this is limited, so I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it. Maybe 2 or 3 more albums and I'll be done. Maybe not even that many. I just want to do something else sometime. Movies interest me.
Dirty Mind was so impressive. It just seemed like a debut album. It was such a change over his earlier work. Beyond the teasing eroticism, Prince had a real purpose. He was challenging people on a sexual, social, and even political level, urging people to think about themselves and what they can do rather than just simply accept what's been outlined for him. And that was very dramatic. Dirty Mind is what started making the changeover. He had his core set. He was so articulate at expressing his philosophy as an artist.
Uptown's more or less a state of mind. It has nothing to do with financial status. It all has to do with how free you are inside and how good you feel about yourself and how strongly you feel about yourself and what you stand for and your beliefs. Me and my group and other people like us that we hang around, we get a lot of slack for our clothes and the way we act and things we say. And the first impression they get is that we're gay. When they don't understand something, people where I come from, they usually just write it off as being gay.
I think there's always leaver's remorse to a certain extent. It's like, okay, now what, genius?
They told me that she was very religious and that she became uncomfortable with the subject matter. But they didn't really tell me about the kissing on stage and at first. I think it's a good thing they didn't tell me that. Bobby talks about it and just poor Gail, some nights Prince would kiss her for just minutes on end.
I just didn't want to sing those words.
The Rick James tour, that was crazy. We went and we were on the tour, and he was having some issues on the tour. Teena was opening, and her star was kind of starting to come up, and his was getting a little bit convoluted because of just other stuff. We were on that tour, and then we changed in the middle of it because the sales were down on Rick's tour. Promoter had booked the venues not selling out. So we left and jumped on Prince's tour. He had been touring with Rick earlier. This time Prince was headlining, and then we met. He came to me after one show and he goes, we soloed your voice tonight. He goes, I really like your tone of your voice. I just rolled my eyes. He was like, well, where are you from? California. Where are you from? And he goes, Minneapolis. I was like, where is that? I'd been around the block as far as the music business, or so I thought. My stepfather was Fuller Gordy, Barry's brother. My mother managed Teena. And I remember my mother was like, are you going to go watch his show? And I was like, no. And she goes, Jill, he's going to be a huge star one day. She goes, I can feel it. And I said, really? She was like, yeah. I was like, well, we'll see.
Anyway, we were out there through April of 1980. Right after about the first couple shows, I had to switch my look because Rick James was wearing my outfit during one of the songs that I had on. Co-wrote the music on the song Dirty Mind, and then played the solo on the song Head. He just wanted my flavor. He had come to the conclusion he wanted to get some input from other band members. The song Dirty Mind happened because we were jamming at the rehearsal space one day, and I just happened to hit that chord progression improvising. Once we completed Dirty Mind, he had me come back another day and said, hey, why don't you do a solo on this song? It was just improv all the way.
I felt like I was on some different end of the spectrum because other people that were involved were making money, and getting credit. And I felt, on the outside of that.
Well, here's the thing. Prince and myself, we wanted to write some songs. And so we wound up going out there for that particular project. And I wrote this song that wound up on one of his albums, Do Me Baby. At the time, we had written so much stuff together that I never really thought about. And I didn't really understand publishing and all that other kind of stuff. It's just not, it doesn't matter, and it's not, and the thing is that there's recordings of it, I have recordings of it, of the song that I did.
He knew a good idea when he took it. If he didn't respect you, you were kind of rolled out to the curb, and that was that. He learned what he needed to learn, and now you could move on.
I never made an issue of it. I think it was more of an issue for other people. Other people made an issue, and that's how it even became an issue. I never went out and said, oh, this, that, and I don't think you do it. I mean, I hope, I want to hope and want to think that people don't do things like that maliciously, but, I just kept it moving. There were other issues that came up.
I find that most people are pretty respectful in front of my face. When they're not around me, sometimes you hear them say some pretty hurtful things. And I don't know if they think it won't get back to me or if I don't care or if I think I'm above it or whatever. But I remember them as I remember them. We were in love then, we should be in love now. It's a hurtful place, the world in and of itself. We don't need to add to it. I hope people, when they hear that, they don't think that I'm going to lash back out at them because I'm not like that. I've never done that.
He wanted to be a solo artist like Prince. He didn't like being just a sideman. Didn't want to wait several years for Prince to succeed and be the guy that was Prince's right-hand man, side man, best buddy, / whatever.
Believe me, if he had allowed more collaboration, I would have liked to have had more. I was always trying to get him to co-write with me because of his own vision and what he had in his mind. There was a lack of that sort of thing with everybody in general. He would start with the rhythm section with us if we had written something with him. And then he would take it into the studio and finish it up himself with melody and lyrics. We weren't around during that process. He really did lyrics and melody specifically alone. Maybe Lisa and Wendy later on.
Our families grew up together. There were 3 kids on Lisa's side, 3 kids on my side. And growing up in that kind of environment, we were very well versed with what it's like to be musicians. We knew the difference between entertainment and artistry. We had bands together with our siblings. There was an unreleased record on A&M, Waldorf Salad. My father and her father are also the ones that were the band for the Partridge Family. My dad was Shirley Jones, and Lisa's father was the little girl.
My dad would take me to the studio with him sometimes, and he was a real studio musician. It was perfect to meet Prince, who was such a maniac in the studio. Yeah, a friend of mine got a job working for Steve Farnoli, Prince's manager, and he put the word out that he needed a girl to replace Gail. I didn't know who Prince was at the time. He picked me up at the airport and started having second thoughts because I wouldn't look at him in the eye, and I was quiet and strange. And that's the pot calling the kettle black, right? I mean, so we got to his house and he kind of pointed, the piano's downstairs, and he went to the phone to call his manager and say, she's not the one, send her home. I don't know what I was playing, but he said he heard me playing some crazy chords and stuff, and he said, never mind, and hung up the phone and came downstairs and we started playing together. Yeah, he didn't tell me then. He was still kind of checking me out. And so I did go home.
I'm in the kitchen of the Coleman's house in Hollywood Hills. She's just come back from Minneapolis. She comes back with a cassette of Head. And to hear her voice say, I'm just a virgin and I'm on my way to be wed, it was uncomfortable for her to say. The way she speaks, it was so innocent sounding, makes this whole song freakier.
Between Prince and myself, I think we sort of just explored it and then conceived. You know what I mean? So it was back and forth, but I did see that in what he was doing, and I loved it. I loved that it was outrageous. And I moved out there within another week. So it was like 2 weeks from idea to like, I live in Minneapolis. It was pretty fast.
I was very grateful. I had Dr. Fink with me, Matt from St. Louis Park, Prince Andre. We're from Minneapolis. We had each other. It was comforting that we did it together. It took a while for the thing to happen. It was starting to happen.
I literally did the last part of Prince's tour for free. So I didn't make any money. So I was like straight broke. In this situation, I can't really live the kind of life I want to live. I have aspirations and goals. I never thought I was going to be in somebody's band where I have to wait for somebody to kick me down. It's not my personality. I ain't really making no money. Somebody else has a house with this dope shower and this dope tub, dope car. I'm like still at my mom's crib. And I know I'm all involved in everything. And it's like I'm starting to ask those questions. I can't even really take my girl to the movies. This ain't making no sense. Hey, you know what? I wish you all the best.
With Andre, Prince actually told me he came home. I lived with Prince's girlfriend, Kim Upshur. We all kind of lived together like you do when you're in your 20s. And he said, I fired Andre. It's like, you can't fire Andre. He's your brother. Yes, I can, and I did. And he's not in the band anymore, and we're going to get a new bass player. And, he got really serious. I think he was freaked out himself, because he just got a little bit more mean.
Well, I have a mean side.
Try to convince everyone that had to happen.
Sometimes I'm a little bullheaded in my ways. Hopefully people understand that. There's just a lot on my mind, and I try to stay focused on one particular thing. I try not to hurt nobody in the process. There are themes and there are songs, and they all go together to make this painting. I'm the painter. Y'all's the painting.
I don't know. I just need to see if there's a place for me to do what I need to do. Because I was always writing my own music. I was always doing my own thing. And I've never thought I was going to be in somebody else's band not doing my own thing.
He was doing his thing. That was his thing. And I know how Prince was strong, man. He would wrestle you down, and maybe Andre was just sick of competing.
I'm a fighter. I'm very competitive. How can I put this? My father, he was so hard on me. I was never good enough. And there was something about that. It was almost like the army when it came to music. Having a bar that's so high, I think from him being so hard on me, I understood that in his harshness, he wanted me to excel.
I felt like I was losing my identity. There's a lot of me in what was going on at the time.
If you're jamming and you come up with this dope bass part, but then when it actually goes to be recorded for the record, and the bass part is still like if that normally happened, we'd have a problem.
I was always myself. I'm always going to be myself. I was definitely myself then, and you got to hope that people respect that, because if they don't, there's not much you can do about that. That's their problem. And I just felt like, I wanted to, before it became, too far, and maybe it had, it's hard to say, at some point, you go, you know what? It's that time. I think when it was happening, he just wanted things to be the way he wanted them to be. As much as I loved him and still love him, it's important for everybody to be themselves.
My best friend, Andre Cymone, his brother, Eddie, I'm entirely indebted to in this regard. He used to tell me, man, your songs are better than anybody's on the radio. You can do whatever you want to do.
I wound up seeing, a bass player and said, you might want to go check this guy out. And that guy wound up being a bass player. People tell a whole different story, and maybe it was different. I have no idea. All I know is that's what I did, because I didn't want to leave, because he was still my friend. I didn't want to leave him with nothing. So, I literally went to some clubs in Minneapolis, saw a guy that had a similar style, and gave him a heads up.
But from my little perspective, I know that my last gig with Prince's band was in France. And that's where I left my trench coat and called it a day.